This is Hunt Nebraska, the official podcast for insight into Nebraska's hunting and shooting sports community. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, our space for sharing stories, information, tips, and techniques. Now, Hunt Nebraska. Welcome back into the Hunt Nebraska cabin, folks. Thanks for letting us join you on this beautiful Nebraska spring day. We are having lots of fun. We've got the Jeff Rawlinson, Nebraska Game and Parks Commissioner. We've got the Michael Addison, National Wild Turkey Federation. We've got the Hunter Ed Coordinator here in the state of Nebraska, Kyle Gasson, and you've got Hershy. That's me. Here talking about a lot of different things. We're not going to avoid the topic right now. I mean, it is turkey season. We are really getting into it. It opened not that long ago, and just some great weather coming up here for several days. And I know we're right on the precipice of the weekend again. We'll probably get this out just a few days into the next week. But you guys having fun out there yet? Been able to get out very much?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure fun's what I'm going to call it right now. You guys have heard my stories, but I'm enjoying it.
Oh,
I'm enjoying it.
Well, that's part of it.
Yep,
Kyle?
Yep.
I got mine planned up in the coming weeks. I'm just itching ready to go. But
that's the beauty of Nebraska turkey season here in the spring is it's long, and you can some of the best hunting, I think, is later on. Right. It's hard not to go out during those first few days, but everybody does, and sometimes you find these birds less pressured and a little bit more willing to play because the hens might be off in the landscape. Some of them are already nesting, some still trying to or what have you, but it just seems like the best is yet to come, but that's pretty awesome. Anyone been out? You don't have to spill the beans because we're going to, folks, show the videos that we will shoot from our last podcast where we talked about the challenges. You've been able to get out and put any of your challenges into play yet?
I have fulfilled the pinwheel challenge.
Well, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Well, I just said I've just fulfilled the challenge.
Yeah,
I went out and hunted with pinwheels. Data has been collected. Results are coming soon.
Are pending?
Yes, results are pending.
Well, make sure they're interpreted correctly.
Some here disagree with the
scientific
data.
results are great, but the interpretation's the key.
That's why Jeff wants to meet with you after this podcast. That's what, I see. I see.
Now I want to have a hand in how those results are displayed.
Now, if I remember right, you've dabbled in the challenge a little bit already, Jeff.
I dabbled my rear. I did the whole darn thing. I mean, put the jakes. How many 15 jakes was I supposed to put out decoys? I put just a field full of jakes out there and on one hunt. And
well, don't tell us the result, but you've already done
14 behind the blind, one in front of the blind.
Yeah.
So hopefully, folks, we'll be seeing those videos hit the Hunt Nebraska YouTube channel. You're going to want to check that out. Obviously, we can't do that on the sound platform, so make sure you sneak a peek at those as we get them posted. Kyle, I know you weren't in the cabin, but you did draw one of the slips of paper afterwards for the turkey hunt challenge.
yeah, you guys pinned me down, said you have to do this. So you guys hand me over the hat of different challenges. So I drew out the hunting on public land, which is maybe why it's taking a little longer because now I'm changing up plans and scouting out other places to go hunting out. I have some people maybe helping me out a little bit too.
Well, there you go. It's always good to involve friends and family in this type of stuff. If you got some resources, put them to use. I mean,
exactly.
That's the way it works. So that's awesome. I unfortunately didn't have the right camera, so maybe you'll see some footage of my challenge, but I've got to go out and maybe redo parts and pieces of it. Might get a second hunt in with my challenge, which isn't the most difficult compared to what you guys already talked about here. It's hunt with only a box call.
That's a tough challenge.
Yeah, I get to wear camouflage, right?
You're
but
a
only
humanitarian.
A box call.
You're just a humanitarian to go forward with that challenge.
I've got to figure out how to fling it just right. But, so anyway, we're here because one of the things that's popped up on conversations around our office lately is the length and shooting hours here in the spring turkey season. And here in Nebraska, it is for spring turkey season. Kyle, I will let you spill the beans. You've got some law enforcement background, so we'll let you say it the way it's supposed to be said.
So shooting hours goes 30 minutes before sunrise to sunset.
Nice and simple.
Yep. The other stipulation that we were talking about is shooting birds out of the roost. You cannot shoot till after sunrise. So that's the only big other change here that I think you were doing some digging here beforehand, trying to compare to other states and trying to understand a little bit if there's any other kind of stipulations, how we compare versus the rest of the U.S.
This is one of those things that if you've spent any time in other states or other regions, especially hunting some similar species, you'll find that every state has a little bit different things. Maybe it's just a word. Maybe it's hours when you can start shooting a certain species, or when you have to get done hunting them for the day. Whatever it is, obviously bag limits and season dates are always in flux, and depending on what that state's trying to do. But it is kind of interesting. Spring turkey hunting one is one where it kind of comes to the forefront. I've only ever lived in a state that allows all-day spring turkey hunting, but heard of some states that you had to quit at noon or quit at 1 o'clock as well. And before I toss this to Michael, Jeff, Kyle, have you guys lived in any state? This might be a loaded question. Have you guys lived in any other state other than Nebraska?
Only for a summer.
Only for a summer.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
So that's the home state.
Can't imagine why I would. I mean, this is Nebraska.
Yeah, there you go. We're all Nebraskans by choice.
For one summer and came back.
Did you hunt turkey there in the spring?
I was only out there during the summer. So
maybe fishing. They have a summer turkey season.
Nope. So
I was going to say in Nebraska for a while, there were more days you could hunt turkeys than not hunt turkeys between the spring and the fall season. And so that's kind of been what I'm most familiar with, all day hunting. And by the end of the season, oh my goodness, those days are long. I mean, you talk about from pre-sunrise being out there till after sunset, after fly-up time, make for some pretty long hunts. Now, Michael, I obviously saved you for the last because
I'm the odd
maybe
man
not
out
so
here.
much.
Yeah, no, I'm the odd man out. So growing up in Missouri, not only do we have a fairly short season, about 3.5 weeks, usually about the middle of April to early May, but also had a 1 p.m. cutoff. So that's actually changed this year. On private land for the first time in Missouri, you can now hunt all day.
Oh.
But on public land, you still have the 1 p.m. cutoff.
Well, states with very small turkey populations, you see that, right? You see that they're trying to, get them out of the field early.
Very small
and real
turkey
small turkeys in
populations.
general. I know the Missouri turkeys. What do they weigh? Like 10 pounds?
The 20,
12 for the
I've only shot 26 pound gobbler. That's a pretty small turkey.
Email complaints to jeff.rawlinson for those living in the state of Missouri listening right now. And I know they're not alone. I was trying to do a quick search on the old interweb to figure out what other states have cutoffs before sunset, and I'm not having great luck, so I'm going to kind of punt on that. There are other states though that have early cutoffs, whether it's on public land, private land, both, what have you.
Yep.
That you can't hunt all day. So this is kind of an interesting topic because it's one that hadn't given much thought about until Michael, you've talked about it quite a bit and having to be done, like you said, 1 o'clock. There's kind of a hard deadline now, and there's still daylight left, which is kind of different.
Yep, plenty
here in
of
Nebraska and other states. I think every state I've hunted turkeys in, it's been all day. You kind of, there's more time, and you kind of just like, all right, but I got to go do something or what have you, or you stick it out to the bitter end. Evening hunts. We're going to talk a little bit about those. I want to know. I mean, most fun, obviously, to me anyways, hearing them gobble, right? Getting up early and up there in the tree, they spend all night, usually by themselves, so they have to sound off for the ladies to let the hens know where they are so they can congregate and start their day. It carries for the longest ways. But evening hunts some people love them, some people hate them, some people are kind of indifferent, and now you get to try it in your home state because you're headed back there soon to partake in their spring season again.
Yep.
For the first time, you're going to be hunting some spots in the afternoon.
Yep.
So I got to ask first question to everybody is, what's your general thought or ideas about, and we'll say late afternoon, early evening type turkey hunts? Good, bad? I mean, where do they fall in the spectrum?
Well, I say anytime you get out hunting, it's going to be good.
Oh, that's right. There's the right answer. There's the right answer.
So,
no arguing that one. All right, closing the door on that. No, I'm just kidding. But there are some people that, like I said, I love early mornings. Jeff, you and I know some individuals, archers, that 10 to 2. That's what they talk about. Sometimes they don't even go out early.
Yeah, I can be totally fine hunting, 10 to 2, 10 to 3, 10 to 4. Probably have killed the bulk of my turkeys in that time frame. I like morning. Don't get me wrong. I like morning a lot, but early morning to me has been probably the lowest success rate of all. and people like it because you're going to hear gobbles, you're going to hear hens. If you're near a roost, you're going to hear fly down music, all that cool stuff, and you're thinking, and it's going to make you, oh my gosh, you're already looking through recipes on your phone. I mean, you're thinking this is going to be great, and then all of a sudden they shut up, and you're just like, what happened? Well, I mean, of course, what happened? Flew down with hens. So I'd much rather find toms lonely, and that's that 10 to 3, 10 to 4 range that I think is about perfect time. When you talk evenings, I like evenings. Don't get me wrong. Now, late evenings, you start to get between 5:30, 6 o'clock, and legal shooting hours. I'm not a big fan of that time frame because when birds start heading to roost, I've found it. You'll hear them. You'll get lots of gobbles. I call them courtesy gobbles. That Tom's just telling you where he's going, so you can follow him if you want to roost with him. But that's about what I've seen. And so I'm not a big fan of late evening. Man, I tell you, I've killed a pile of turkeys in that 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock range, and enough to where I get excited sometimes, check out early from the office and head out to the field.
That's probably what we should have done. As you're speaking there, Jeff, the thought kind of just crossed my mind. We should probably have a clock or something here in the cabin just to say, all right, here's this time frame, because morning, we talked a little early morning, but morning oftentimes in the turkey woods gets divided up, doesn't it? Pre-dawn, before they fly down, early morning, right off the roost, and then you've got kind of mid-morning, and then you got late morning, and then the rest of the day, afternoon, evening.
Yeah,
I mean, it's one of those things where we don't really chop it up a whole bunch. 2, 3 o'clock, that might be late if you're just going 10 to 2, for example. But if you're going there from 3 to 5 or 6 or something like that, then that's the kind of the beginning of the whole show. So
you really got to, and this is where your scouting comes into play and doing your homework, because if you're going to take advantage of all hours of the day, you really got to do your homework, because those guys and gals that get up early, the crack of dawn, and they're out there in the field already. Your best success certainly is going to be roosting birds the night before, knowing where they're roosting, and setting up 75 yards or so from that roost tree, and getting just lucky that one of those toms maybe doesn't have a hen with him, or isn't liking what he's hearing, and he hears you and just meanders over there. If when birds come out of a roost tree, there's if you were to segment out a field in quarters, there's probably 75-80% of the direction they're going to go is in probably 2 quarters, right? They're going to go in a couple different directions usually, and there's just directions, parts of the field they just never come out of the roost tree and seem to go into right away. So then if when they come out of the roost tree and where they like to go into a field or where they like to go from there, and you're setting up there, that's another good reason to be out early morning, because you can intercept those birds heading out into that part of the cornfield or whatever, and being right there. But if you haven't done your homework, then I think early morning is really a tough one.
It can be, but it also, just what you said though, scouting got easier, right? Because now I can hear where they're gobbling from, and now unless it's thick woods, all right, well, exactly which ridge, which ravine they in. Yeah. Parts of Nebraska, just like there's only one clump of trees down where that pre-dawn gobble came from. Scouting. Just like, all right, we can get down there. Kyle, what's your thought? Because to me, afternoon, not so much the middle of the afternoon, but more towards that evening. That's probably one of my second favorite times to be out there.
I was gonna go along that same time frame, so maybe not quite to where you're getting into that dark stage or sunset stage, but a couple hours before that seems to be actually where I've had a lot of success.
All right, so you're gonna back up what he said, huh? All right, well, there's definitely no doubt that
amen.
Definitely no doubt that there's times where they gobble going up just to let the hens know where they are, and that's great. That's part of the reason I do like it. Now, I've actually harvested a lot of gobblers right there the last couple of hours before sunset. I've had tremendous luck in certain spots, but there's also, I add into that the times that now I've got them excited. There are some times where I've set the stage that evening, that time, right at fly up, got them excited, and the next morning, right off the roost, it's some of the most phenomenal hunts I've ever had, which is interesting in some cases. Now, if they're not gobbling, there's nights we've all had that, and it's just like, what am I doing out here? I'm going to have cold cereal for supper. But at the same token, I remember one time in specific that had to wait. That turkey flew up so close, thought it was coming in, and just like you said, probably giving some courtesy gobbles as it got to where it wanted to roost, or it just got tired of keeping walking towards this hen he was hearing, flew up into the tree about 50, 60 yards away and just gobbled and gobbled and gobbled. And my brother and I, we were on that hunt, thought, all right, we got to wait until he can't see us anymore, because it was pretty early spring. And so we waited till it was almost pitch dark, and he was still gobbling. But we're thinking, dark, here we go. We can sneak out, and we did. We got in the car there on the old logging road and drove off. We got home at 10:30 at night. It's 15 minutes away from the house, but we got home at 10:30. Got up the next morning, opened the car door, and it's I think it's just after 5 a.m. That turkey is still gobbling. So we snuck right back where we were, and we finished the job once he flew down. But he was coming in. It was set up just perfectly. Did the same thing with one of my wife's first gobblers as well. So lots of fun, lots of opportunities. And the thing we probably, at least the three of us can agree on, is it's nice having the opportunity if you want to go take advantage of that, because that can help spread out some of the hunting pressure, especially on some of those where a lot of people hunt, whether it's public access or private land that everyone's got permission to. There's always going to be people out there in the morning, fewer people usually as the day goes on as well. But Michael, once you moved to Nebraska, had you ever hunted turkeys after 1 p.m. in your life before you moved to Nebraska?
In the fall.
In the fall, okay.
Fall.
In the spring?
In Missouri, fall huntings all day. In the spring, no. No, never had hunted them after 1 o'clock. Usually, very rarely actually make it to 1 o'clock. Usually, the 1 p.m. cutoff's there. So then you start thinking, well, I'm going to have to quit here in an hour or half hour anyway. So usually by the time it's even like noon, 12:30, you're out of the woods anyhow. Unless you were working
that's
bird.
Just wrong. That's just wrong.
Doesn't that feel weird?
Oh.
I mean, just thinking about now all of a sudden it's middle of the day and you're looking at your watch. And if you've got a bird going, it's just like, is he going to get here in time? Is there a certain spot where you've just kind of invisibly drawn a line saying, if I don't hear a gobble, I'm not going to go looking for to listen for one, because I won't have time?
Usually the way I've always been is, if it rolls around to about noon and I have not heard anything, not seen it, no indications anything's going on, unless I strike up a bird that he's firing right back and I know he's coming quickly and he's close. At that point, just as well about pack it in, because if you're going to take another hour to work a bird, then you've hit the time limit, and, well, there's no reason in having him get 30, 40 yards away from you, and then you can't get up because you're going to bust him.
Yeah, so. I mean, that's the other thought right there is if you only get them part of the way, now you got to kind of, what do you do? I mean, obviously you can't shoot them anymore, but if you've got a bird that you thought is coming, all of a sudden hangs up, but if I walk out of here now, it's past 1. I can't hunt anymore, so I can't call. I got to unload the gun, whatever. Have you ever sat there and just let whatever play out so you don't bump them out of the way?
Nope. Usually I've always gotten out of the woods early. By the time I've ever had a gobbler, there's been a time or two where I've been working a gobbler and I've hit that time period, but they're usually far enough away still. That I haven't had to worry about trying to sneak out of there without getting them moved off the property.
It's one of those thoughts that I've never had to deal with. Sunset is obviously one of those things. I kind of have the unwritten rule that they got to fly down, and I get to hunt them until they fly up. Because a lot of times, sunset, there's times that they'll be down on the ground after that, but I know it's pretty well done. Like you said, you're not going to get that one charging in. But for the most part, that's once they fly up, sunset's either there or real close to happening. The only thing I can think of it here in Nebraska, Jeff, is when you're waiting for that late Susan, flock of goose to come off the pond or off the river, and you're looking at when sunset. Are they coming? All right, they're up in the air. Are they going to get here in time? We got 6 minutes. They're going to make. Oh yeah, they can make it in 6 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not much of a goose hunter, so I have a hard time relating to that.
You got a good watch, so I've found out.
Yeah, but I've had those situations where you're sitting there and birds are out, and you're getting down to the minute, and all of a sudden they hook around and they just start making a pass or two, and another pass, and all of a sudden they come out and they just come right in, and you look at your watch or your phone, and you're like, shooting hours are over, and they're coming in, they're gliding in, and they just come right down in the decoys. And you're talking a matter of 10 seconds, difference. But, shooting hours are shooting hours. So you sit there and watch them. And, we're not big on spooking birds. So we've sat in the blind watching birds, peck around in our decoys and whatnot. And
geese or turkeys now?
That was for geese.
That was for geese.
For turkeys, when it comes to sunset, you don't usually have a problem because they're not hanging around out in front of you. They go to roost.
No, they're
you might intercept them at a roost site. But aside from that, they kind of tell you when shooting hours are over because they go to roost, quite a bit earlier than shooting hours.
And Kyle, to me, bumping a flock of geese is probably a little bit different than bumping a tom.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. I've been on the end of actually watching groups of hunters, just watching a group of birds fly in. As that when I was a CO, and just like, you gonna do it? Am I going to do something, or can I actually just watch these birds come in and then watch them fly back off? Luckily, they flew back off and.
Never happier to hear a no shot than
that's awesome.
So that was like, good. I'm not hearing any gunshots, so I can just
They're
go
following
check
the
license.
rules.
But no,
that's awesome.
I could think the same thing. I've even had deer hunts for me where a deer, I can't get a good shot at it. It's right near the end of shooting light. I know it's dark, and then I just wait another hour or so before I walk out, try not to spook it before heading out, so I can go out back out there again in that next morning to go get it.
That's a good point with deer. Same thing, right? 30 minutes before sunrise to 30 minutes after sunset. Now, Jeff, like you said, those turkeys are going to roost. They're kind of like game off once that happens. But at the same token, deer don't do that. However, that 30 minutes between sunset and the end of shooting hours for deer, there's a lot of times I'm walking out of the woods. I can't see the sights of the pins on my bow, or what have you, or the open sights or crosshairs on my muzzleloader, whatever it might be, just because that time of year, that sun's at a little bit different angle already, and I'm usually out there just pre-storm or post-storm, and it might get some blue skies, but there's also usually some clouds out there for some reason. So that one I really have never had much trouble with. Maybe it's my bad eyesight.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is.
It really
depends on where you're hunting. You get into Missouri and some of those creek bottoms and whatnot, you're probably pretty dark pretty
They get
fast.
dark quick, yeah.
And that kind of limits you a little bit. And I've had those situations, especially muzzleloader season, where you're sitting back in the trees, back in the woods, and you pull up that old smoke pole and look through those open sights. And, of course, they're just black sights, so you're looking at those sights. You can't hardly see the front sight save your life. And so when it's over. It's over.
So are you looking forward to going back to some of these spots you have traditionally spring turkey hunted and see what they look like and sound like in the afternoon? Even?
Yeah, no, it'll be fun. There's definitely been some instances where I've thought, if I've been working a bird or something, I had to leave, and if only I could come back and hunt him this afternoon, because I know he'll be here. I know he'll be hanging out here. If only I could come back this afternoon and get him, and now I'll have the chance.
Do you find yourself though when you had that 1 o'clock cutoff, and this might actually have helped my hunting? I know by the end of or towards the end of our spring turkey season here in Nebraska, there's times I've just like someone to tell me, no, you cannot hunt past this point. Go home, get some rest, do something different type things. But I also get to thinking, some of the benefit is, you get to do some other things. One of those things could be scouting for the next day. Now I know where those birds are. Now I know that a little bit more of where I can start the next day a little bit sooner.
False hope.
What's that? False hope. It could be, and I guess you get a similar thing at night. But if you're in a spot and you spent a couple hours in a spot where you didn't hear any gobbles, you've kind of bought into that spot, right? Whereas after 1 o'clock, I can go look for turkeys. I can go glass for some different spots. I might stay in my vehicle, especially here in a state like Nebraska, and go listen at 2 or 3 different potential roosting spots that evening at fly up time, rather than, man, I've been sitting here for 2 hours. I might as well sit the last 45, 60 minutes here, what have you. So unique opportunity for you this weekend.
Yeah, no, it'll definitely be a little. Of course, a lot of my hunting since I've been up here in Nebraska has been afternoon hunting. I've gotten out a lot more afternoons than I have early mornings. But yeah, doing it some spots that I've hunted all my life, or for the last several years, it'll be definitely a little bit different.
It's a lot warmer, I will say that.
Oh, yeah.
Some of those chilly morning starts, especially this time of the year. It seems like we've started in the mid-40s or sometimes upper 30s, and all of a sudden we get to 70 degrees. It's hard to dress for that.
It is.
When you're sitting at the base of a tree, boy, which way is the wind going to blow? I'm going to have like 30, 40 degree difference between when I start to when I walk back. That's something else. That's pretty cool. And there's other states, and folks, if you know of any of those or have got some experience hunting just until a certain point each day during the spring turkey season, love to hear from you. And I know that I'm going to toss this out there to try to curtail it real quick. Is one of the things that, a lot of that was started out for is we don't want to bug those turkeys. We don't want to interrupt the breeding season that's going on out there. And we found by most research that weren't really having a huge impact, if any at all, on nesting hens and survivability of those nests and eggs and all that type of stuff. There's some other things that we're finding out that we might, as hunters, being impacting some of that whole process, which will be neat, and we'll talk more about that. But because I think we probably all four of us would agree, if we knew that if by stopping by, let's say, some random time, 3 o'clock, helped the turkey population here in Nebraska, none of us would probably argue with it too much, since we've got a good long season and such awesome opportunities out there. But this also kind of expands into something else I want to get into, and that is just that idea of, all right, restrictions on some of those hunting opportunities. Here in the state of Nebraska, our upland bird, you and I hunt pheasants.
Yep.
When does shooting hours happen for each of those during the season? When do the shooting hours occur for pheasants?
Same rules go along with the turkey, 30 minutes before sunrise to sunset.
Is there any bird you can hunt after sunset here in Nebraska?
Oh, now you're challenging me here.
I am. I don't know if there is, other than perhaps an unprotected.
There is, but it's not a hunting season.
All right, and that would be one of our snow goose.
30 minutes before sunrise to 30 minutes after
sunset during the spring conservation order. That's right. Good memory. Good memory. Which is
a goose hunter would know that.
Yeah.
I hang out with goose hunters. They tell me these things.
and where I grew up, shooting hours for pheasants every day, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Didn't matter where in the season, 8 to 4:30. I've hunted other states now that couldn't hunt them until noon to sunset, and then during the part of the season, then it went from 10 to sunset, and now I think it's all 10 to sunset, 10 a.m. to sunset, which is really interesting because there is some. I'm a morning person. I kind of love some of those early things, but they're added some different things, and a lot of times it was thought originally was. We're going to help them. We're going to let them do part of their day, find food when it's really cold before the hunters get out there and chase them and move them around. Or turkeys, we're going to let them have the afternoon all to themselves so hunters out there aren't interfering. And a lot of times we found that they're doesn't matter if you're a two-legged predator, feathered predator, four-legged predator, they're dodging predators all the time and not having a huge impact on it. However, some of the more unique ones, especially to us here in the Midwest and the Great Plains, is the tradition that some of the eastern states have. Jeff, you and I have heard a lot of conversation about this. Michael and Kyle, I think you probably have too. And the states that do not allow hunting on Sundays. Yeah,
that's what some states do. And I'm going to tell you right now, again, that's kind of where, science and then just, customs.
Tradition. It's tradition.
Traditions, customs of a region or what have you come into play. I don't know that there's too many states that do that for scientific purposes, supporting the population or whatever. I know states have manipulated the start and stop times because of, they want more commerce in town by people coming in and hunting. And so, I guess I understand that, but I don't like it because I don't think it's, they put that burden on the hunters. So I'm not a big fan of that. And I look at that from the standpoint that, what's the number one reason? And the research is just, we're just giddy with research now today. We didn't have it 20 years ago, but the research today is pretty clear. One of the number one reasons that people don't hunt is there's not enough time. Mm-hmm. And so to take away, you only get 2 days. Most people are hunting on the weekends, period. That is probably 90% of the hunting is going to occur on the weekends. To take away half of their time, half of their ability to hunt, will never make sense to me from a hunter's perspective.
And this is one of those things that having not ever been in a state that had this type of restriction or regulation or rule or whatever it is, some of it's in their state statutes, it's nothing that I have any experience with. I've never hunted in a state that's like this. I have hunted in a state. Actually, I believe we'll have to do some checking. I believe North Dakota, there's certain spots that you can't hunt geese on Sundays or certain days of the week over public areas and things like that, which is unique. But I haven't ever been in one of these no Sunday hunting states. Yeah. And so I was doing a little research, but like you said, Jeff, tradition and tradition weighs into hunting very heavily. It's part of the reason a lot of us keep hunting and carry on that tradition is getting out on, this time every year to do this type of hunt with these group of people. It is huge. And I didn't realize until went to a national symposium a couple of years ago that there are some hunters that's what they grew up with, and by Jove, that's the way it's supposed to be done, and a lot of these other states are doing it wrong. I jumped on the old interweb again to figure out exactly what states and all that, and it's very complicated, folks. The first thing that I pulled up is there might be 9 states that have some type of Sunday hunting restrictions: Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Virginia. You'll notice something about that grouping of states. There's not many right here in the Midwest or the western side of the states. And there's this is from the Safari Club International webpage, and I don't see a date on this. And I know some states even this year are working on some rule or regulation changes or statute interpretations, that type of stuff. I think some groups often are. But here's what it says. 2 states prohibit hunting on Sunday for any wild game. That's Maine and Massachusetts. And then it gets complicated. And one thing I did find is in North Carolina, you can hunt on Sundays, but no firearms between 9:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. So they get you the morning brunch and for Sunday dinner right there. Here's some others. Maryland allows hunting on Sundays in some counties on private land. West Virginia allows hunting on Sunday on private and public land. South Carolina, wait a second, why would they even put that one there? South Carolina, hunting on private land. There's quite a few that now allow hunting on Sundays on private land or certain wildlife areas. Some Pennsylvania does say they allow it Sunday hunting for foxes, crows, and coyotes. That's pretty specific. And then Delaware. God loves Delaware because they have a lot of rules. Delaware hunters can hunt on private or public land on 5 individual Sundays that occur between the opening and closing dates of the October muzzleloader deer season, between the opening and closing dates in November, December, and January shotgun deer season, and the Sunday at the end of the November shotgun deer season.
And then we can't figure out why people are hunting.
That sounds like one of those. That sounds like one of those disclaimers.
Hershey, you tell me. Aside from tradition, what would be a biological? And I understand there's more than biological at play. But what would be one biological reason? That those states are not allowing hunting on
Sunday. That's a tough one to get into because, to be honest with you, once you start trying to apply biology to tradition, there's some paths that get really tough. I mean, does it really matter to the turkey that you shoot it out of the roost tree, whether it's sunrise or after sunrise or 30 minutes before sunrise? Well, biologically speaking.
Now, see, that one, I disagree. That one,
well, good.
I can easily...
Because you'd be wrong on that one.
Yeah, that one, I could disagree with you easily on that one because, that one would have a harvest implication, right? I mean, you can easily roost birds, walk up to a roost tree in the dark and shoot birds out of the tree.
I that one,
I get that. Well, you can beg all you want. So that one, I get. That one, I get. But not hunting on Sunday... that one I just I get tradition. So I get that's just part of what our state does. I get that, but thank God Nebraska doesn't do that. But
see, this is where,
but I get tradition, but it makes it. I'm just going to say it makes no sense to me. And it makes no sense to a lot of hunters.
And I'm not arguing that point at all. But a lot of our rules and stuff come down to the idea of fair chase is what it comes down to. And fair chase is not a biological thing. There is no predator out there in landscape, wild critter, that thinks, boy, if I jump on this mouse, is it fair? Did I really give it much of a chance to get away? That is very much a human constraint that we put on hunting for good reason, right? Mm-hmm. For a lot of different reasons. Part of it is not just maybe, part of it's biological at times. There's the other part that's just like, how will I look to those around me? How will I look to those that hunt or don't hunt and that type of stuff? We regulate a lot of tradition in that type of thing. And I will say, having walked underneath plenty of turkeys, there's times they do stay in the trees, but there's times that you don't. But what I was talking about is not roost shooting by any means. That's all usually frowned upon. I'm saying if that turkey flies down and you shoot it, compared to it's still in the tree at that 30 minutes before sunrise, shooting hours to the turkey, it really hasn't changed a whole bunch of different things. And it's walking up to a roost is a lot tougher than I think we've made it out, especially in a place like Nebraska where it's wide open and things like that. Deeper timber, perhaps. But having done some of the research with turkeys and roosting sites, I know it's not as easy as what we say it is. That said, we get into a lot of these different things, but you're exactly right. It's tradition, and we say we manage scientifically, but there's a lot of different things that we have our seasons held during these times for these social regions. We have this.
There, tradition and fair chase. There's some overlap. I try to separate the two myself, but there's some overlap. Why does this state allow dogs and this state doesn't allow dogs for deer hunting, for example? Why does this state allow shooting roosters off the road and this state doesn't? Again, a lot of that's tradition, because I don't know that we have a lot of data that says, well, road hunting, we had a lot of, there's accidents have happened, no question about it. But I wouldn't say that South Dakota has a lot of data on a lot of accidents with road hunters, so I don't attribute it to that. So there's some tradition there, and I totally get that. But I think that there's a difference between some of these, what we say is tradition, and others that we say, well, it's giving you an unfair advantage, because I would argue there's probably no unfair advantage to hunting on Sunday. That's just strictly tradition.
Well, yeah, the Methodists aren't there.
It's not fair for some of us who are.
I bet they would be if you allowed it.
There's a lot of wives who are like,
I think
they need to be home on
that
Sunday.
one, Hershey. So tradition's fine, but when you think about all the constraints that are placed on hunters and all the stress that is put on hunters' shoulders, and oh, by the way, you're supposed to pay for all of conservation as well. I think that we could do states, with some of those types of traditions. I think we could do a better job of giving hunters a little bit more support than I'm gonna tell you, I'm not a big fan at all. I'm just
you're hiding it well.
I'm just the opposite. But again, hunters got 2 days to hunt a week usually, and we're going to take half of that away and then turn around and wonder why we're not getting as many hunters as we had years ago. I just think that some of those things, you gotta think ahead a little bit there. But anyway,
Kyle, Michael, you guys get a chance to weigh in this.
You guys have an opinion, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think the limitation on Sunday hunting, it's kind of, to me, it's pretty well useless. I mean, like Jeff said, a lot of folks, and like for example, getting kids out there, most kids, they're in school during the week, and that's going past 1 o'clock, or obviously, or so. Even if you have that time cut off too, you're giving them just the weekends to hunt, and I can't hunt on Sundays. Now you got 1 day a week that you can go hunt, and especially with a lot of stuff that goes on nowadays, kids are in all sorts of other activities, sports, and other things that, maybe now they can't hunt at all because they've got all these other things they're doing.
That's a good point. Now, if those same states outlaw soccer and everything else on Sundays, then we might have a little discussion there.
Yeah, and you can finish your thought.
But yeah, and I think we're seeing more and more states start to loosen up on those laws too. I think especially as people have kind of the proliferation of hunting media. People are seeing more and more these these guys are hunting in this state. They're doing it on a weekend, or they're doing it in the afternoon, and we're seeing that it's not having a big detriment to their state. Going out and doing that. So hey, why can't maybe lobby a little bit for our state? Why can't we hunt on a Sunday or hunt past 1 o'clock? And that was kind of a big thing. I'll go back real quick to the time in Missouri season. Is what always bugged me was not only did you have the 1 o'clock cutoff, but it was a short season. So a lot of hunters were like, if we've got to have the 3.5 week season, that's fine. Let us hunt all day. So that we've got more opportunity. At the end, it comes down to opportunity. The more opportunity, you can't take away opportunity and then wonder why people aren't getting out in the woods, because that's just, you're just not, if you don't provide it, they won't do it.
Well said. Kyle?
And I think the way to look at it from the other perspective too is people all have their own traditions. Everybody wants to do it their own way. But why should, sometimes state law get into the way of the fact of opportunities for others? So the fact of, even though we have, they open it up, people can still respect the fact of, I still don't want to hunt on Sunday. So I know we were mentioning it earlier, but still have that option to.
It's like a self-imposed bag limit. Your state's bag limit might be 2 or 3 birds, but if you're hunting the property, you're like, I can really only afford to take one, just take one.
Yep. Same thing kind of goes along the line of, do you shoot a duck that's sitting on the water or not? Some places might have the rules, some don't. Most of the time, it's up to the hunter preference. Can they or can they not do it?
And this is where there is overlap now. This is where we start to get an overlap between, is this just what this state does because of tradition or whatever, and fair chase rules, because, this is where we get into some of that, well, is there any biological reason? Nope, we just don't do it. We just don't do it in Nebraska. But this state doesn't recognize that's a problem. They do this all the time. And so, there is some of that. And I really think that states are starting to look at some of those rules and decide, are those really rules that we need to have? And some will never change. Tradition's too ingrained. There'll be some states, that will never. We'll always look at some of these things for fair chase. But, for example, we just had a discussion here about a year ago about using drones to recover game. I don't care if it's a turkey or deer or whatever, but using drones. And oh my gosh, this became a discussion. And a lot of people, no, absolutely not. That's not fair. And, a lot of states like Nebraska don't allow the use of drones to recover game because it's considered not fair chase. Then you look at the other side of an argument, well, what about we're trying to make sure that we haul out all deer carcass and all that because there might be lead in the meat and there's lead in the gut pile or whatever. So we want to make sure we recover those game animals and not leave them out in the field so that we don't have those issues. All of a sudden now you've got another really biological reason why it maybe should be done, but you have a traditional reason or a fair chase reason why we don't do it. And it's an interesting conundrum. It really is.
And this is part of the fun stuff that if you're new to hunting, you get to kind of weigh back and forth. Because I think you nailed it, is when you've got more opportunity, you get to decide and self-impose some of those things. What do I think is right? What do I want to do? How do I want to get out of it? It was something we saw recently when we did that Facebook Live. The idea of one of the listeners and suggested was, I think we should probably, encourage, and there might be somebody, that this individual didn't, but there might be someone that said, I think we should have, a moratorium on jake harvest in the spring. Which is one of those things, just like, boy, that's adding another restriction to hunters, where if that's what you feel, that's great. The problem when you get into tradition sometime is, whose tradition is it? Yeah. How has those traditions changed, and what individual or group might be don't have the same traditions that this group does, that group does. And back in the day when there were oodles of hunters and funding was not a problem and all that type of stuff, kind of like when our turkey population was so high that it didn't matter when we hunted them or how we hunted them or anything like that. We had a bunch, and we didn't ask, well, how does this work? How does that happen? It's only when that population starts to drop down that you start realizing, oh, we gotta figure out a little bit more about this. Same thing with some of those restrictions and traditions, whatever fair chase rules or what have you is. All right, here we had a whole bunch of hunters and we had this in, but now we don't. How do we get some of those back? And that is an issue that I think we all have to face and come up with an answer to, because our voice is shrinking on a lot of different platforms more and more. But it is kind of fun. This is kind of the fun idea behind it. I do want to pick up, because I had a thought and I didn't want to cut you off, but I'd love it if states like Nebraska, this is what we need to work on, talking about more time, is Wednesday at noon, we all had to get kicked out of work or school to go hunting or fishing, because there are schools here in Nebraska that Wednesday is family night. There are no school activities scheduled. There's nothing going on. What better time to get out there and when you've got daylight, or shucks, we could go calling raccoons or chasing coon hounds or what have you in the evening, calling coyotes, Jeff. On those, though, that we'd open up another time frame.
There you go.
Right
School
there.
outdoor day.
So if you're going hunting or fishing, you get off at noon.
I like it. That's a tradition worth having.
All right. Folks, if you got some other thoughts, we're going to have to wrap this up. This one kind of covered two fun subjects, lots of interest, a lot of thoughts out there. Traditions are huge, but sometimes they're a little different to us when we're not used to them. So give us your thoughts, ideas, comments down below. Also give us a big thumbs up, subscribe so we know when the next one of these drops. But until next time, we'll see you outdoors.
Hunt Nebraska, brought to you by your Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.